You can be one of the most requested characters on this channel and become Sasuke from Naruto in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Like many characters in Naruto, the power scaling is a little broken, but we're going to try and cover as many of the insane abilities that Sasuke has as we can. First things first, we got to start with the race, and I was very tempted to go with a human variant just to grab a feat right at first level, and Sasuke is essentially human, but people pretty much try and use his body like an Airbnb. So with all the constant experimentation and changes that he's going through, I feel like a reborn fits just as well, and it's going to be a little more helpful when we get to the stats. When you choose this race, you get Ancestral Legacy, giving you 2 skills, so we're going to grab Insight and Perception. You get Deathless Nature, so you have advantage on saving throws against disease and being poisoned, which does make sense because Orochimaru did try to make you as immune to poison as possible. You get advantage on death saving throws, you don't need to eat, drink, or breathe, and you don't need sleep, and magic can't put you to sleep. When it comes to a background, well, we constantly are reminded of the terrible, terrible fate that the Uchiha clan faced. It feels like a flashback almost every other episode. So we're going to take the background, Haunted One. This can give us skills in Survival and Arcana, just so you understand Chakra a little better. Then when it comes to some stats, we're going to go ahead and dump Strength because you're more nimble than anything else. We're going to take our Dexterity, bump it up to 14, and do the same thing to our Constitution so you can take a decent amount of hits. And I know that Sasuke is insanely smart, but unfortunately we only have so many points to go around thanks to using Point Buy from the player's handbook. And in order to address most of the abilities, it's going to be a little better to put our points elsewhere. So unfortunately, we're going to have to dump Intelligence down to 8 and boost our Wisdom to 13. Then we get to put the last of our points into Charisma, bringing that to 13 as well. Then we get some additional points thanks to becoming a Reborn. And I chose a Reborn instead of a human variant because human variants can only put 1 point into 2 different scores, but a Reborn gets 2 points into one score and 1 point into another. So we're going to boost our Dexterity up to 16 and our Charisma up to 14. And the way I'm justifying that boost into our Charisma is because even though you're very dark and brooding, everybody seems to love you. Then as far as the starting class, we got to do some ninja stuff, so we're going with a Monk. When you become a Monk, you get access to simple weapons and short swords, and that short sword is what we're going to be using most of the time. You get saving throws and strength and dexterity, and then you get to choose 2 skills, so we're going to grab Acrobatics and Stealth. Finally, you get Unarmored Defense, so if you're not wearing any armor or wielding a shield, you get armor class equal to 10 plus your dexterity modifier plus your wisdom modifier. Also at first level of Monk, you get martial arts. So as long as you're not wielding a 2-handed or heavy weapon and you're not wearing any armor, you can use those martial arts for a few different things. Like now you can use dexterity instead of strength for any attack and damage roll of an unarmed strike or a monk weapon. Additionally, you can roll a d4 in place of normal damage for any unarmed strike or a monk weapon, and that weapon die increases as you level up in monk. And finally, when you take the attack action on your turn with any unarmed strike or a monk weapon, you can go ahead and make 1 unarmed strike as a bonus action. That 1d4 feels pretty small, but when you add it on top of using your short sword pretty regularly, it will definitely contribute a bit. Although with D&D 1 in the works, there is some talks about boosting up that damage die even at level 1, but we'll just have to wait and see how that pans out. Then at 2nd level of Monk, you get Ki, and this is going to be the chakra going throughout your body, and you have a number of key points equal to your level in Monk. You can spend those key points on a few different things, but specifically at this level, you can spend it on Flurry of Blows, allowing you to make 2 unarmed strikes as a bonus action instead of just 1, Patient Defense, so you can take the dodge action as a bonus action, or Step of the Wind, so you can take the disengage or dash action as a bonus action on your turn, and your jump distance is doubled for the turn. And the last thing you get at level 2 is Unarmored Movement, so your speed increases by 10 feet while you're not wearing any armor or wielding a shield. Then once you hit 3rd level in Monk, you get a Monastic Tradition, and some of the earliest abilities that we see Sasuke use are his fire-based jutsus and that Lightning Chidori. And a way to cover both of those super early on is by going with the Way of the Ascendant Dragon. When you take this subclass at level 3, you get Draconic Disciple, giving you Draconic Presence, so if you fail an Intimidation or Persuasion check, you can use your reaction to re-roll the check, or you can use Draconic Strike. So when you damage a target with an unarmed strike, you can change the damage type to acid, cold, fire, poison, or lightning. So now you can strike out with that Chidori. And lastly, Draconic Disciple gives you Tongue of Dragons, so you can speak Draconic and 1 other language. The other thing you get at 3rd level of being the Way of the Ascendant Dragon is Breath of the Dragon, so you can use that fiery jutsu and exhale Draconic Energy in a 20-foot cone or a 30-foot line, and you can choose any elemental damage type: acid, cold, fire, lightning, or poison. The damage of this ability only equals 2 rolls of your martial arts die, so it's pretty small at this point, but with all of the abilities Sasuke has, there's going to be a few that are going to take a hit, and unfortunately, this is one of them. Then, instead of going to 4th level in Monk, we're going to go ahead and do a multi-class because we need to get to a very high level in another class to get some of Sasuke's most powerful abilities. And considering you're dealing with some dark and nefarious forces, we're going to go ahead and multi-class into Warlock. Think of this as making your deals with Orochimaru or any of the other dark turns the character takes. When you become a Warlock, you immediately get an otherworldly patron, otherwise known as the subclass. And one of the first characters you make a deal with is one just trying to avoid death. So we're going to take the Warlock subclass, the Undead. This gives you an expanded spell list, but at first level it also gets you Form of Dread. And you can think of this as when you let your curse completely take over your body, which we will find other ways to amp up. But for now, Form of Dread makes it so for 1 minute you can gain some benefits by transforming yourself, giving you temporary hit points equal to 1d10 plus your Warlock level, and once on each of your turns when you hit a creature with an attack of any kind, you can force it to make a wisdom saving throw, and if it fails, it's frightened of you until the end of your next turn. And the last thing about your Form of Dread is you just become immune to the frightened condition. Also at first level of Warlock, you get some pact magic, which is just some special kind of magic that recharges on a short rest, but you have a very limited amount of spell slots. However, those spell slots are always going to be at the max level they can be cast at. We'll cover most of the spell casting a little later though. Then at second level of Warlock, you get some Eldritch invocations. And the first one we're going to grab is Armor of Shadows. This allows us to cast mage armor on yourself at will. So all of that stuff about being a monk, which requires you to not wear any armor, technically, mage armor isn't real armor, it's just a magical protective barrier. So all of your monk stuff can still remain active. The only caveat is that mage armor and your unarmored defense don't stack together. You have to pick one or the other. So we're going to be relying on that mage armor for most of our defense, making it so our armor class equals 13 plus our dexterity modifier. So we just don't have to worry about our wisdom much anymore. Then we get one other invocation at this level, but we're going to save it for just a second because at third level of Warlock, you get a pact boon, and we're going to be relying on Pact of the Blade. So now you can create a pact weapon in your empty hand, and this is going to be that short sword you're constantly wielding thanks to being a monk. Although if you ever want to swap it for a kunai, you can do that too. So the other Eldritch invocation that we saved is going to be Improved Pact Weapon. This allows us to add a +1 bonus to our attack and damage rolls using that pact weapon. Also at third level of Warlock, our spell slots upgrade to second level, and then at fourth level of Warlock, we get an ability score improvement. So we're going to go ahead and boost up our dexterity by 2 points because it's going to help most of our monk stuff, our attacking, our armor class, and basically everything other than our Warlock spellcasting. Then at fifth level of Warlock, we get to choose another Eldritch invocation. So we're going to take Thirsting Blade. This gives us extra attack, allowing us to attack twice with our action. On top of that, at 5th level, our spell slots upgrade to 3rd level. Then at 6th level of Warlock, we get another feature from being an Undead Warlock, granting us Grave Touched. So you don't need to eat, drink, or breathe, but we already have that from being a reborn. But on top of that, once on each of your turns when you hit a creature with an attack and roll damage against that creature, you can replace the damage type with Necrotic damage. And you can think of this as that Black Flame ability. So surrounding your sword in Black Flame seems a little more spot on with that necrotic energy. Then at 7th level of Warlock, our spell slots upgrade to 4th level and we get one more invocation. So we're going to take Eldritch Smite. So now once on each of your turns when you hit a creature with a pact weapon, you can expend a Warlock spell slot and you deal an extra 1d8 force damage to the target plus an extra 1d8 per level of the spell slot used, meaning you can deal an extra 68 force damage when you happen to hit a creature with your pact weapon. And on top of that, when you hit that creature, if the target is huge or smaller, they're knocked prone, meaning you have advantage on your next melee attacks. Then at 8th level of Warlock, we get another ability score improvement. So let's go ahead and max out that dexterity. And then at 9th level of Warlock, our spell slots upgrade to the highest level spell slot you get as a Warlock, at least when it comes to your pact magic, because you get some special magic a little later, but also at 9th level you get one more Eldritch invocation. And considering your ability to see the flow of chakra so well, we're going to take the invocation Eldritch Sight. This allows you to cast detect magic at will without expending any sort of spell slot. Then at 10th level of Warlock you get another feature from being an Undead Warlock called Necrotic Husk. So your connection to undeath and necrotic energy now saturates your whole body. as if that curse has completely taken over, giving you resistance to necrotic damage, and if you transform using your Form of Dread ability, you become immune to necrotic damage completely. Additionally, when you are reduced to 0 hit points, you can use your reaction to instead just drop to 1 hit point, and your body just erupts with deathly energy. So each creature of your choice within 30 feet of you takes necrotic damage equal to 2d10 plus your Warlock level. The only downside is that you're going to gain 1 level of exhaustion. Then at 11th level of Warlock, you get a Mystic Arcana, and this is where you get another special kind of spell casting. This is just one spell that you get to choose, which is a 6th level spell, and you can cast it once per day. Then at 12th level of Warlock, you get another ability score improvement. So we're going to go ahead and boost up our Charisma by 2 points because it's going to help all of our Warlock stuff. And that Charisma is going to make an even bigger difference because we also get an Eldritch Invocation at this level. And the Eldritch Invocation we're going to take is Lifedrinker. So if you hit a creature with your pact weapon, you deal extra necrotic damage equal to your Charisma modifier. Then at 13th level of Warlock, you get another Mystic Arcana. This time it's going to be of 7th level. Then at 14th level of Warlock, you get another feature from being an undead Warlock called Spirit Projection. Sasuke is able to summon Susanoo, and this is probably one of the better ways we can pull that off. With this Spirit Projection, when you activate the Spirit Projection, you're basically concentrating on it like you would a spell. Your body becomes unconscious, but your spirit winds up being able to fight for you. When you activate this ability, your spirit and body gain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. Additionally, when you cast a spell of the Conjuration or Necromancy school, the spell doesn't require any verbal or somatic components, and any material components that lack a gold cost are also not required. On top of all that, you have a flying speed equal to your walking speed, and you can hover. You can move through creatures and objects as if they were just difficult terrain. And finally, when you use your Form of Dread on top of all of this, once on each of your turns when you deal necrotic damage to a creature, you regain hit points equal to half the amount of necrotic damage dealt. And remember, thanks to your Grave Touched ability, you can replace any of the damage that you are doing with necrotic damage, which means that you can turn your Eldritch Smite damage into necrotic damage. You already have additional necrotic damage thanks to your Lifedrinker ability, and since that allows you to regain hit points equal to half the amount of necrotic damage you deal once per turn, that means you can pretty much just tank through most attacks, because you'll just regain the health next turn anyways. Then at 15th level of Warlock, you get another Mystic Arcanum. This time it's going to be an 8th level spell, and you get to learn one more Eldritch Invocation. And because we're going to have plenty of spells that are going to need it, including some abilities that we already have even before taking any spells that do require concentration, we're going to take Eldritch Mind. This makes it so you automatically have advantage on Constitution saving throws to maintain concentration. Then at 16th level of Warlock, you get one more ability score improvement. So we're going to go ahead and boost up our Charisma one more time because that's going to help all of our Warlock stuff. Then finally at 17th level of Warlock and the 20th level of this overall build, we get one more Mystic Arcanum of 9th level. And we needed to get that 9th level spell slot because there's a very important ability we need. Now let's go ahead and cover some of the spells. We won't go through every single one, but we'll get the important stuff out of the way. If you want the full spell list, it'll be up on my Patreon, where I have the character sheet for this build as well as all of my other builds. But when it comes to cantrips, we gotta make sure we hit hard with that sword, so we're gonna grab Booming Blade and Sword Burst to hit everything around you. Use something like Toll the Dead for that Dark Flame ability, because we don't want to rely too much on just pure fire damage, and we've kind of established that necrotic damage can be that Black Flame. So Toll the Dead deals necrotic damage. Then lastly, you're a ninja, so Minor Illusion's going to be pretty handy. Since we do benefit a lot from necrotic damage thanks to our undead Warlock levels, we're going to go ahead and grab Spirit Shroud because that just adds some necrotic damage to every one of our attacks. Sasuke does summon a few things, so we have kind of our pick of whatever we want. While we can't summon a giant snake, we can kind of play around with the idea and say that maybe a shadow spawn is a snake, or possibly even a greater demon, because that tends to not always do what you want it to do. But if you want to cast a spell that can be more like that spectral skeleton coming out from you without relying on your undead Warlock abilities, there's a great new spell from Wizards of the Coast's Book of Many Things called Spirit of Death. It's basically summoning the Grim Reaper. It has a big reaping scythe and it can haunt creatures. But to be able to talk to Naruto in another dimension, you want to do Contact Other Plane, to be able to basically teleport around like a ninja can, grab the spell Far Step, which is essentially like grabbing Misty Step by being able to cast it repeatedly, and then make sure to top everything off with Hold Monster so that way you can hold some of your enemies in place. But the bigger spells that we're going to want to worry about are the Mystic Arcanums, and those I gotta cover every single one, because at 6th level, we're going to grab Tasha's Otherworldly Guise. That, mixed with all of your Undead Warlock stuff, you are very well covered in enhancing your abilities, embracing that curse, and just being overall stronger. The 7th level spells don't have a lot that will really fit with Sasuke. You can grab something like Finger of Death or Crown of Stars, just because they're solid damaging spells. As far as an 8th level Mystic Arcanum, I would just grab Power Word Stun. It's a very powerful spell and it helps in most melee situations, but the main spell I just had to make sure I grabbed, which is only on a few different spell lists, but I felt like a Warlock was going to fit best due to the shady dealings that Sasuke gets involved with, but thanks to his Sharingan, he is able to basically see all of your enemies' movements with insane speed, and basically you just know what's gonna happen thanks to those insanely powerful Uchiha eyes. And that's perfect for the 9th level Mystic Arcanum, Foresight. Foresight is incredibly powerful. It does not require concentration while still lasting 8 hours. And it gives you advantage on absolutely everything, while at the same time giving all of your enemies disadvantage when trying to attack you. It just overall helps all of your chances at everything in D&D. But that's my general idea of what I would do if I were to build Sasuke from Naruto in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Let me know what you would do differently, because I feel like Sasuke especially has a lot of different ways he can be built. I was super tempted to go with Wizard instead of Warlock. I even contemplated going more into Druid so you can summon more of a giant snake, and at the same time only have to focus on your wisdom. Overall, there's just a lot of different ways to build this, so I'd love to know what other people's ideas are about it. And if there's any other builds that you want to see in the future, let me know down in the comments as well. And if you want access to the character sheet for this build or any of my other builds, feel free to check out my Patreon linked in the description down below, where you can become one of my incredibly awesome patrons. Just like that Funnyman57, Joshua Maynard, Derek Owen, CGC 2014, Afstorm, Vidata Metzpahik, Godzilla Khan, Elisa Martinez, Panda Milkshake, Ted Z, Andrew Nobles, Carcat Kitsune, Zed13, Viral Naravar, Daniel Galvin, and the Dino21. Or going above and beyond the player character patrons are my Dungeon Master level patrons that I play D&D with. Shane Gilroy, Kamen ZX, Cybersiety, Talon Starkey, Demiurge, Braden Aldridge, Eric Wade, Salvador, Devin Happy, and Kilo Kilo. Then going above and beyond anything I ever imagined is my God tier level patron who helps me way more than I ever expected, and that's GameStake, so a very special thank you to him. And finally, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, let me know by hitting that like button, and I'll be here hoping you roll at least 3 net 20s in your next D&D session, especially if you want to play Sasuke Uchiha from Naruto in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition.